Hi, you're listening to Burn Beautiful, a podcast for women ready to step into their divine feminine leadership so they can create a life of joy, health, and impact beyond their wildest dreams. Here, you'll learn how to heal stress from the inside out, reclaim your vibrant health, and master your energy so you can lead powerfully without burning out and actually enjoy the moments that matter most in this one beautiful and precious life. I'm Nicole Whitaker, burnout and leadership coach, founder of Lead Up Health, and creator of the HERS method. Welcome. Hello, and welcome back to Burn Beautiful. It is lovely to have you here today. My name is Nicole. I'm a transformational speaker, coach, and facilitator to help you increase your impact and lead from a place of holistic health. And I'm the founder of Lead Up Health. And I am excited to dig into today with you because this is part 2 of our 2-part finale on how to actually meet your goals, even if you don't have a lot of time. So in part 1, we talked about how to create conditions for success so it's just easier to meet your goals. We talked about systems and structures and support and the environment. So more or less, if you're thinking about a plant, it's the soil, the sun, and the air that your plant needs to actually grow for you to actually achieve your goals. We talked about how it's not enough just to want a goal and how it's not enough just to focus on doing. Like so many of us just jump straight into doing. I'm guilty of this as well, right? Oh, it's a new year. I'm just going to eat differently, exercise more. But eventually, stress and busyness kick back in, and often those goals just don't stick. So, today we're talking about how to make them stick. And that means taking a look at a deeper layer or the root system underneath all of it. And that root system is your state of being. When you do not shift your state of being as you try to make a goal or behavior change, what's going to happen is your nervous system is always going to pull you back in to what feels familiar, right? Into your subconscious habits, to your autopilot. Because no matter how good your plan is or how much you've set yourself up for success, change can feel uncomfortable. And the way you can think about this is 2 people who have the exact same plan, same calendar, same meal plan, same workout routine, and one follows through and the other doesn't. What's the difference between the 2? It's not really because one is more disciplined. It's because one has also worked to develop a nervous system that can tolerate the discomfort of change, or they're just curious enough to know what's on the other side if I stick out this discomfort. This person has also considered their identity. They have believed themselves to be someone who is capable of achieving that goal. And they have rewired some of those beliefs about themselves, about others, about their surroundings that is going to support real change. And the other doesn't. So today we're going to talk about how to cultivate that. It's really talking about the yin to the yang of doing, to your state of being. And there are 4 aspects of this that we're going to dig into, and that is awareness, emotions, beliefs, and your identity, because this is what will ultimately determine whether any of this goal setting and this habit creation sticks for the long term. And so, just before we go further, I want to name a few signs that indicate that focusing on this way of being in order to meet your goals might be where your real work lies. So, one indicator is that you might start strong, but then you kind of fall off if you miss a day, or you do great until a stressful event hits, and then we're back into having those old patterns take over. Or maybe you know exactly what to do, you have the knowledge, but it's like you just can't seem to make yourself do it. Or maybe you're like really good at just like white knuckling through it for a week or 2 or 3 or even a few months, but then something hits and you just rebound. So if any of that sounds familiar, that is not a willpower problem. That is a sign that your work lies more on the being side of the equation. And here's a simple working definition for state of being. It is really the internal climate that you're operating from, your stress, your self talk, and what your nervous system believes is safe or possible for you. And the beautiful thing is when you do the work here, change actually gets a whole lot easier and it requires less time and energy because you're removing an existing friction and replacing that with flow. You're removing pressure and replacing that with a much more supportive, nurturing way of being. So let's jump in to talk about this concept of being. The concept of being is about being in relationship with yourself, your life and your goals. It's how you view yourself, what you believe about yourself, and the state of your nervous system and stress levels. Again, it's that root system of a tree. And when you think about the root system of a tree, the roots bring the nutrients up to the tree itself. So the depth of the root determines exactly how tall and how wide a plant can grow. So thinking about a tree, what we see on above the ground is actually a mirror image of what is happening beneath the ground. And so it is with our inner life. Change is an inside out job, and our outside external experience is a reflection of our internal world. So if you give me a goal, for example, that you didn't accomplish or one that I didn't accomplish in the past, I can show you exactly how your state of being got in the way. And conversely, show me a goal and you can think of your own goal. I can think of my own goal that you did accomplish. And I bet you can trace it back to a state of being, right? A belief you had about yourself and knowing you had about yourself that actually got you there. So again, your state of being is that internal climate that you are operating from. And this is what determines whether you return to the plan when life gets stressful, whether you get back on track with those habits when you fall off. So, we're going to talk about each of those four components that I named: awareness, that helps you notice what's happening below the surface. It's kind of like putting on snorkel gear and seeing what's below the surface of the water. It's a whole ecosystem down there, right? And it's impacting all of the things we see above ground, above water. We're going to look at beliefs, right? And this beliefs really explain why you default to what you do. Beliefs are the rules that you live by, and the emotions that come along with them are really in the driver's seat. They have far more control over where you go and what you accomplish than that logical mind. Side note, the word belief actually has the word lie in it. Go ahead and spell it out in your head. And the reality is, our beliefs are not necessarily true. So that's a critical component of this work. And then finally, identity. Who you believe yourself to be is going to determine what feels more natural for you to do. It's going to help reaching that goal feel effortless. So, I want to start by looking at the role of the nervous system and emotions and the role that they play in creating change and follow through with habits and ultimately meeting your goal. So, there's this metaphor that I love that comes from a behavioral psychology called the rider and the elephant. So, for this analogy, it helps if you literally imagine a human rider on top of a huge elephant, right? This little person on top of a massive elephant. So, your rational mind, your logical mind is the rider, but your emotional brain and your nervous system, that's the elephant. And so, if you kind of think of where the rider is sitting, right, the rider can see the path, the rider knows the plan, the rider has great intentions, right? It's that part of you that really wants to meet those goals and you know how to do it. But that elephant, the elephant is massive, right? It's much bigger. And the elephant decides where you actually end up going. You can tell the rider, we're going to eat healthy this week, or we're not going to work after the kids go to bed, or we're going to finally rest. But if that elephant is exhausted or stressed or overwhelmed or emotionally overloaded, the elephant is going to say, nope, we're getting that sugar. Nope, we're going to doom scroll. Nope, we're going to keep working and staying busy because slowing down feels unsafe to me. And the writer will come up with a very logical explanation afterwards, right? It might sound like, oh, I was too tired, or I didn't have time. I didn't have a good night's sleep, so it's better to start tomorrow anyways. And if you can relate, by the way, welcome to the human race. We have quite literally all been there, right? This emotions, plain and simple, emotions always win. This is why willpower does not work in the long term, right? If your nervous system associates change with danger or loss of control or discomfort or uncertainty, it's going to put you right back to what's familiar every single time. So when people say, I know what to do, I just can't make myself do it, that makes sense. That's not a character flaw. That is an elephant challenge. So a tiny practice here is simply this. Instead of asking, what should I do? Start asking yourself, what would help my nervous system feel safe enough to do this? Because when the elephant feels safe, the rider doesn't have to fight. Think less burnout, less exhaustion, and more success with greater ease. In the previous episode, I talked about a few ways you can make it feel more safe. And one is simply by starting small and focusing on consistency rather than speed, right? Go for that 5-minute walk instead of that 20. Work for 30 minutes after the kids go down to bed instead of your usual 60 and work back from there. So let's begin with the first component of that state of being. And that first component is awareness. So if you can't see the pattern, you cannot change it, right? When you have greater awareness, when you put on those snorkel goggles, I guess there, and you peer beneath the water, you can see it all. When you have greater awareness, it's that moment when you catch yourself doing that habit or thinking that thought. That's part one. But then the second part is staying in that awareness and being able to look under the hood or under the surface of that ocean to see, okay, well, what's really going on? Because without awareness, you're going to keep moving on autopilot. And typically, this ends in self sabotaging even the best laid plans. So, for example, say you have a goal around losing weight and you're trying to break that habit of eating sugar. But every day, 3 p.m. rolls around and there you are. There you and I are. Or is it just me, right? Eating something sweet. You come to realize that you're doing it, right? Like mid-bite, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm doing it. That's phase one of awareness. But two key awareness moments must follow. So, first, instead of spiraling into shame and self doubt or giving up, right? Get curious. Ask yourself why. Why? How did I find myself here in this pantry eating this sweet, right? And the answer might be something like, oh, I'm stressed. I just got off a really crappy call with my boss, or oh, I just had so much to do, or oh gosh, I forgot to eat lunch. No wonder I'm craving something, right? Or maybe I'm just feeling kind of empty inside. This job just feels so unfulfilling. And then part two is say, okay, well, if that's what's going on, what do I actually need right now? What can I give myself right now that actually is supportive? So if you're hungry, great, by all means eat, right? And consider eating a bigger lunch tomorrow so you don't reach that craving point. But if you're not hungry, maybe, and just stressed, maybe you need a stretch or a sip of water or a short walk or a few deep breaths, right? And see if you're focused solely on the doing and you don't put on that snorkel gear and go beneath the surface, then you might end up berating yourself and then just trying again tomorrow and the cycle continues indefinitely. I know this because this has been me, right? The real problem with stress or boredom, not hunger or lack of willpower. So that awareness piece is going to reduce wasted energy, wasted guilt, and it's going to propel you towards your goal because you saw the root of the issue. You stopped fighting the symptom, which is the snack, right? You got to the root. And if you can relate to this, a tiny practice could make all the difference for you this year? Just simply pause and name what you're feeling and ask, what do I actually need? Okay. Let's now shift to talking about the inner game of beliefs. So, again, beliefs are those invisible rules you're living by, and they're often subconscious, right? 95% of what we do is subconscious. And the worst part about these beliefs is we didn't put them there. They were put there by our parents, by our friends, by society or past experiences, but they literally control our lives and who we believe we are, what we think makes us worthy and lovable, and what we believe we are capable of, right? And a super small example, I moved around a bunch as a kid. And because of that, I struggled in math. A belief I held on to for so long was I'm terrible at math, right? It's not true. But that belief was installed into my circuitry and how I operate. To this day, I still get anxious when I have to do like math live, right? It's not true. It's not, I didn't have that belief was installed in me. And so my work is to see when that crops up and uninstall that belief. There was a study done that shows just how powerful beliefs can be, where students who simply began to believe that intelligence wasn't fixed, they received a few lessons learning about malleable intelligence, about how you can grow your brain. They outperformed students who weren't taught this. They didn't get extra instruction in math or reading. It was simply a belief shift, and they performed better. Okay, you've likely heard of the placebo effect, right? When a patient is given a fake pill and they get better than those who don't get the fake pill simply because they believe the pill will make them better. I think the crazy part is they even when they know it's placebo, they still get better at a faster rate than those who don't. So an example of how this was playing out on a deeper level in my own life a while back was around money. So because of my upbringing and how I saw money play out in my family, basically the more money my dad earned, the worse our family life seemed to get. I was carrying this subconscious belief that money was bad. I had no awareness around it, but I had this belief that having money meant you're selfish or that you didn't belong. And so when I began to build up my personal awareness around this, I noticed little things like my reaction to wealthy people and to receiving money, and realized that this belief was running the show and like limiting my potential and my growth. That I would break up with boyfriends who made a lot of money because I felt like money was evil. We'd have a terrible family life, right? I would, wouldn't go for certain jobs because of the higher salaries. But as I began to clear this belief and replace it with the truer one, right, that money is neutral and a tool or a resource, and it can be used for good or bad, that's when the money started to flow. So if you don't work with beliefs, you'll keep working against yourself because some part of you subconsciously is going to think change is unsafe. So you want to gently ask yourself, what is a subconscious belief I have about this goal that you're working towards? What about your personal ability to achieve this goal? What beliefs might you subconsciously have there? And what beliefs do you have about how safe it would be or what it would mean to achieve that goal? So, a tiny practice here is just ask, what would I have to believe is true to follow through with this goal, to meet this goal? And then you choose a truer, more empowering belief. And you write that on post-it notes all throughout your house and you repeat it to yourself because the more you think it, the more you say it, it will become a real belief that is ingrained into your brain. You're creating a new neural pathway. So finally, let's dig into identity. So, identity, again, is that kind of person that your brain thinks that you are or who you believe yourself to be. There's that word belief again, right? So, if you don't work with identity, you're going to end up relying on motivation, and motivation is going to run out. So, James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, says every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, something more powerful to say is, I am someone who takes care of my body, right? or I'm someone who is at, a healthy weight. Then you order as that person. You move as that person. You make decisions as that person. And what I love about this approach is that you're starting to build as you make these decisions as that person who takes care of your body. You are building evidence, right? So it starts maybe as fake it till you make it, but all of a sudden you're looking back and like, oh yeah, yesterday I did order that for lunch. Yesterday I did exercise. And then it becomes this fake it till you make it becomes a provable reality. So a tiny practice here is take a look at your goals and complete this sentence. I am the kind of woman who, and then fill in the blank. And again, post-it notes all over the place, put it as a reminder on your phone, put it in your calendar, and then cast one small vote today for that identity. So, something really important I want to note here is that this is not about changing the core of who you are, right? It is actually getting at the core of who you are because it is reversing everything that this world has told you you were or were not, right? It is about coming home and uncovering all that gunk, the false stories, right? My false story is about money or math, so that you remember who the heck you actually are underneath all of that programming. And there are two recent learnings that I've had when it comes to this state of being piece that I want to share with you today because it has really made a big difference, all the difference, really. One is the 2% rule. So I've been doing this for about a month now, and it has been awesome. One of my favorite questions I've been asking myself lately is how can I do X or Y 2% better? So, for example, how can I show love to my husband 2% better than yesterday? Or how can I be 2% kinder to myself today than I was yesterday? And I freaking love this because 2%, that's not intimidating at all. I can do 2%. You can do 2%, right? And so going back to that emotional safety that your elephant's not going to get stressed out and bent out of shape, right? But over time, 2% plus 2% plus 2%. And all of a sudden, it creates a massive identity change and a crazy change of direction. And I have experienced this firsthand. The other is creating conditions for being. So, just like in the previous episode, we talked about creating conditions for success for your habits. So, think, support systems, structures, visual cues. You also want to create conditions for success that support your nervous system, your beliefs, and your internal state. So, for me, this lives in my morning and evening routines. It lives in, as I shared, post-it notes with my intention words and upgraded beliefs on my desk, on my bathroom mirror. Um, Calendar blocking time for meditating. Meditating is a part of my job because I know that it is getting me in a mental state that is going to make me more effective. Walking in the middle of the day, that is part of my job, right? Journaling. And so these again are the structures, they're the containers that you're going to use to cultivate this state of being. And finally, I do want to close out with talking about doing, right? The actual actions, the actual habits that the conditions of success from the previous episode and the way of being from this episode are all aimed at supporting, right? We've got to act. And again, this is the spot where most people solely focus their attention. But the reality is, when you know what you really want, when you've created conditions for success, both previous episodes, when you've cultivated your way of being, doing gets simpler, right? It's not completely effortless, but it's simple. So, going back to our plant analogy, if you have the right soil, sun, water, and roots, the plant's just going to grow, right? And inner growth always leads to outer growth. So, doing is simply showing up, taking the tiny step, and returning when you fall off. It's not hustle, it's not pressure, it's not a complete overhaul of your life, right? And so, just a few reminders when it comes to doing the habit, exercising, eating, stopping work, at a certain time, whatever it is, being more loving towards your partner. Consistency beats intensity, right? It is about small, repeatable actions over time. When I first started exercising, this was again 6 years back, I did it for 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a week. That is it. And I built from there. Now, today, I have a much more robust exercise routine. That's 6 years later. But I showed up no matter what. You want to aim for no more than 1 0 day. In other words, even on those rough days, your kid is sick at home or work is crazy, do the 5-minute version. And no shame there. You show, it's just about showing up. Be proud of yourself for doing the 5-minute version. Open the document, work for 5 minutes, go on the 5-minute walk, and then get back to the full schedule the next day. It's, the concept of if you fall off, you want to return without drama. And this is key, right? This skill of coming back without self-punishment, that is the rep that's going to make you stronger. This is where the growth happens, where the actual rewiring happens. This is the opportunity to be able to look back on this year and say, yep, I did it differently. So before we close, I want to ground us again in what we know, which is that your achievements, whether you meet these goals or not, in the end, it doesn't actually matter. Because what you accomplish or what you don't accomplish pales in comparison to who you are, right? Meeting these goals has absolutely nothing to do with your worth. It is about staying in relationship with yourself and returning to yourself and returning to love, asking yourself, what is the most loving thing to do in this moment, again and again, when life inevitably is going to pull you away from yourself with stress, busyness, and disappointments of the daily life. It's about coming home to yourself. So as you go into this week, I want to leave you with a few gentle questions to sit with. What is it that I really need in this moment? Where could I be 2% kinder to myself? And what is one small way I can practice who I'm becoming, that identity today? Remember, you don't need to rush. You don't need to prove anything. You're not behind. You're not late. You are right on time for your life. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't want to do this year the way I've done it before, and if you'd like support in actually building this in your health, in your impact at work, in your life, I do have a few one-on-one coaching spots open. If you're interested, you can book a free consult on www.leaduphealth.com, where we'll talk about what's working, what your goals are, what's not working, and whether this is the kind of support that is a good fit for you. And whether you do that or not, know this: you are already whole. This work is simply about clearing away what's been in the way so that more of you can step into the leadership of your life. Until next time, burn beautiful loves. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode sparked something in you, subscribe, and I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to rate and review the show. It is the most powerful way to help other women find it. And if you know someone who is struggling or on the edge of burnout or simply wants to lead from wholeness, send this their way. Let's grow this movement together. To get exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes support, join the HERS Insider List at www.leaduphealth.com. And if you're ready to explore working together, whether through coaching or consulting, you can book a free consultation right from the site. Until next time, burn beautiful loves.